swap your rig. Truck, Jeep, car, I don't know, go-kart even. This is a 2016 Jeep Wrangler that I have put a 12-valve Cummins into. I'm sure the most of you know what a 12-valve Cummins is. If you do not, it is the early model Cummins. You know, this is a 94 P-pump motor. But there are some olders. You know, I think they came out in the late 80s with VE pumps, and then they moved over to the P pumps, and then we've actually got a 24 valve right there, which has the VP pump. And then after that, of course, they went to the direct injection, you know, we've got an 06 common rail. I'm sorry, not direct, they went to the common rail, which we've got one of those outside. But yeah, let's bring you in over here. We're going to show you, I mean, there's like a trillion different ways you can come and swap. I mean, you could, as far as like Duramax swap something, or if you're really, you know, a goofy person, I guess you could power stroke swap something, but it's just not my thing. I've always wanted a Jeep. I've always loved the Cummins platform. So why not do it? I'm not the first one to do it. Probably not going to be the last one to do it. But this is your 12 valve 6BT, not just the old little brother 4BT. You know, if he's going to add some weight, let's go all the way. So let's bring you in over here and I'll show you sort of how I did it. All right, so if you're going to diesel swap something, this is pretty much a bone stock motor to my knowledge. I mean, there's some head studs, you know, some aftermarket stuff possibly done to this motor. I don't know. I'm going to be dead honest with you. The only thing that I've done to this motor since I've got it, built this sort of stack kit and then done some modifying to this elbow. And actually this neck came off of that VP pump over there. And then built this thing. So currently it's going to be a non-intercooled motor. But so the main things when you're swapping something is, you know, you got your engine mounts, you know, your transmissions. And like I said, this is like a dirty, you know, just quick overall of how I did it. I mean, there's a quadrillion ways, numerous transmissions that you can adapt to the 12 valve, transfer cases to the, you know, the moon. I mean, so this transfer case, this NV4500 came factory on that 24 valve right there, which I have the truck outside. It is a 1999 Dodge Sport 2500, you know, single or extended cab short bed truck. So yeah, so that's that. This motor was a Facebook marketplace buy. I actually had intended on putting that motor in here, but the VP pump, you know, it's a lot more electronics. I don't know if you can see this harness or not, but there's wires all over the place. If you can find a wire on this thing, which originally there was, you know, you've got your RPM sensor there. Then you've got, you know, a temp sensor over here, which I had put a different temp sensor in. So really your temp sensor, and then, you know, a lot of your other stuff is mechanical. So you can have like an electronic oil pressure sensor, electronic, you know, all kinds of stuff. But we're sticking with the bare necessities. So we're going to have a 12-volt power going to the starter, and then a keyed, you know, obviously ignition switch to start it up. Other than that, I mean, I can show you in the Jeep. Eventually we'll get that thing in here. The tub of it is sitting right outside the garage door there. I'm actually pretty well done with this. I've got to put a plug in right here. I'm actually going to replace all these bolts up here and replace this gasket, sort of clean this surface up a little bit. But yeah, we're going to jumping off topic here, back on the engine swap. So, I mean, it's not the hardest thing in the world. The biggest thing for me is on this Jeep chassis, the engine bay is super tight. There's not enough room for this motor to put in the engine without cutting the firewall. So I did have to do some minor modifications to the firewall of the Jeep. No big deal. Like I said, in more videos, we'll get into that. But the bare necessities of putting a motor in, a 12 valve in, is, you know, clearances. And obviously this video could be 10 hours long on stuff. But so you have your engine mounts, and this is sort of how I did it. You know, like I said, there's a quadrillion other ways you could have done this, but let me see if I can get him back here. We sort of just built some plates, ran them up along the frame there, came over on the top and bottom, welded out. So we got really good welds. And then we built these braces right here on the front and back to sort of give it a little bit of rigidity front and back. And then, you know, your transmission mount. So right here was the factory cross member for the Jeep that the Jeep transmission bolted to. I had to do some modifying. We'd cut it out, clearance it for this transmission. So I don't know if you can see under here, but there's a space. I think I got about 1 inch to 1.25 inches of gap there. So, and then this is our new transmission cross member. So I've still got to build these shafts. Unfortunately, doing it like this, you know, is limiting you on your shaft. So my front drive shaft, if I was to do a one-piece drive shaft from the front pinion to this pinion, she's gonna hit right about here. So we've actually got a stub shaft that has been built, and then we've got to actually modify this thing. And I know I'm squirreling around here. I'm getting off topic of the Cummins swap, but we've got to cut that down, get that aligned up and tacked in place, and then we've got this bearing right here that goes in as well, and then it's sort of like a carrier bearing. I mean, that's obviously what it is. So that way our drive shaft is actually, that one's going to run right here, stop, and then there's going to be a yoke just like this right here. And then I'm going to order a shaft from the front to right there. But get off of that. If you had a two-wheel drive truck, obviously you just have to worry about your rear drive shaft. So this is sort of how I did it. The 12 valves, they come with a block-mounted fuel pump. I sort of wanted to clean all this up. So I got this super nice Keaton billet block-off plate bolted on there. And I've got the P-pump. I'm sorry, not the P-pump. The Air Dog pump off of this truck for the 24 valve. The fuel pressures are a little different. I contacted Air Dog. They sent me the correct parts to swap out the Air Dog fuel pump to operate with this 12 valve. I think the pressures are a lot higher with the 12 valve. Don't quote me on that. I mean, I'm super new at all this, and I'm going to be dead honest with you. If I can do it, any of you can do it, because I'm still learning, like 100% as I go. So this process has taken me just over 2 years to accomplish. I would say if a man knew exactly what he was doing, knew every part that he had to order, and had some funds, that's the biggest thing is the funds, he could probably do this in like a month and a half, 2 months maybe. But I've sort of learned as I went. You do this thing, and so like if you're a noob, you've never done this before, go ahead and plan on the truck being down for at least 6 months. You know, unless you're just a quadrillionaire and got a bunch of money to blow, pay someone else to do it, but or you know, buy all your parts at once. For me, it was sort of build until I realize I need something else, save up for that part, buy it, because pretty much everything here, I'd hate to throw a dollar amount on this, and I may do it at one point. I save all the receipts to everything that I've ever bought with this, but I don't. I refuse to add it all together. Maybe one day I'll add everything up. Right now, I'd rather not. So, I mean, that fuel tank alone, I do know I just got that thing. That was like $1,600, I think, for MotoBuilt. But MotoBuilt has really, dude, they have some sweet parts for this thing. So I'm pretty excited about that fuel tank. I was going to put a fuel cell in the back. So like there again, you could have went, you know, saved a bunch of money and bought a $150 fuel cell off Amazon, stab it in the back of the Jeep, does the same thing. Whole lot cheaper, but I wanted as much space in the Jeep as possible. So MotoBuilt actually builds these factory frame rail tanks that fit in the back. Right there is where the factory exhaust would be. So we're not messing with none of that. But yeah, so this is just a quick overview of how to diesel, or how I diesel swap this. And I know I'm all over the place. I'm like a squirrel. I mean, one thing to the next to the next. So Cummins swapping, you know, it's a ton more weight. I think this motor dry is like 1,200 pounds, 1,100 pounds. Just go ahead and plan, I mean, around 1,000 pounds. Go ahead and say it's like 1,200 pounds. It's going to add a ton of weight. So in doing so, we couldn't use the factory, you know, suspension, or the axles. I mean, you could use the axles, but for how long? You know, we got 42s on this thing. They're not going to hold up might near at all. So we went ahead and went to 1 tons. This is a 14 bolt out of a 2006 Chevrolet 2500. This is a Super Duty Dana 60 out of a F250 Super Duty. So, funny story on this, I had searched high and low for this front axle on Marketplace. I couldn't find any. Everybody had sets. They wanted like $1,000 for a set. I was like, I'm not paying $1,000 for just needing the front axle. So, as crazy as it sounds, about, I don't know, 2 winters ago, I had just started. I don't even think I've started this build yet, but I was pre-planning, pre-buying. One of my farming partners actually had a 2006 F250. His son, you know, and there again, this was a complete accident. His son, during a snowstorm, had crashed the truck, flipped it, rolled it. I say rolled it. He rolled it up on its side. I don't think it ever went. You know what? I lied. I think it did go completely over and then landed on its side. I'm like 99.9% sure this axle is not bent, but there's a slight possibility. So, long story short, we ended up buying the truck back from the insurance agent, and I was like, hey, you know, if we buy the truck back, I can sell it, part it out, whatever, make you some money, but I'm getting the front axle out of it. He's like, yeah, dude, sure, whatever. It was like, I don't know, $1,500 to buy the truck back. The truck was super low miles, the cleanest. And then I'm not a Ford guy, but this thing was super clean. So, long story short, bought the truck, parted it out, made a ton of money on that, and I got a free axle out of the deal. So, yeah. But, you know, you're going to have to think about your axles, because you're going to need bigger axles, or at least suspension. You may, whatever you're in, you can use the same suspension. But that adds a ton of weight. So you've got an extra weight that you got to worry about. As far as electronics, there's not many electronics at all. So, and then the space that it takes up. It takes up a ton of space. And then you've got your exhaust, of course. So this exhaust, actually, the factory firewall would be about right here. So we did have to modify it, move it back about 6 inches, and it actually sort of concaves around this exhaust. I think it actually sort of, your passenger footwell is in this area, which is right under the exhaust. It actually comes up, the firewall comes around the exhaust a little bit, and then comes back up here. So, I mean, space is limited. I'll do another video. I'm hoping, honestly, we're going to do the bearing and everything tonight, get that welded in place, fixed up. That should be the last bit of modifying that I've got to do with the tub off. So hopefully tomorrow we'll get the tub and everything put back on, and then I'll do a video and sort of show you what I'm talking about space-wise. But, yeah, so your exhaust, fuel, electric, your exhaust, and I know I'm probably, you know, saying the same thing over and over again. I went with a hood stack, and this is actually loose because in order to get the tub on, you've got to take the exhaust off, get it on, put the exhaust back on. We're going to hood stack this, and this is not a end-all deal. It's mainly just for right now. What I eventually want to do is we're going to put a new exhaust manifold on, a new turbo setup, and actually build an intercooler system. This is just the easiest, quickest way to get it going right now. But we're eventually going to build an intercooler system, and probably, so this is our water inlet. She's sort of tight right now, but these are going to be our water inlets, and we'll cover that in just a second. But, you know, we're going to run intercooler piping through here, probably bring it around, run it into the radiator, because believe it or not, I do have a little bit of room. Since we don't have transmission coolers, I do got to figure out where I'm going to put a power steering cooler. I do have a little bit of room in the front of my grill to put someone coming down the driveway? Nope. To put a intercooler. So we are going to intercool it, but that'll be down the road. Like I said, I want to get it running, driving, get my coilovers and everything sprung. I got to take this and get it scaled, and you don't have to. I bought a ton of stuff from Wide Open Design. I actually bought these rad flows from Wide Open Designs, as long as, you know, the front end and everything. I mean, I bought a ton of stuff. The bump stops, a ton of stuff. These aluminum links, upper and lower links, I would highly recommend them. They cost, but I would highly recommend them. So yeah, they actually have like it's like a mathematical equation to figure out your weight. They'll give you a spring, which we've got some springs over there. They'll get you to put those springs on, take some measurements, put the full weight on it, see how much they compress, do some more measurements, and then they'll tell you what other set of springs they need to be able to hold the weight up. I'm going to take it to a fella. He's going to scale everything out. We're going to get the spring rate correct the first time. And then we're going to, like I said, do some more stuff to it, get it running and driving, and really going to figure out on our gearing. So I've got 373s for the front and back, but the rear came factory with 410s. So I'm actually, before I get to swapping gears, I'm going to run it and drive it with the 410s, see how I like those. If I like them, I'll send the gears back and get 410s for the front. We got lockers, ARB air lockers for the front and back. But if I don't like that, we're going to jerk all that out, put the ARB in the back as well as the 373s, do the same thing up here, and then we'll be able to get our front drive shaft. As well as water, what I have done is I actually took these, which this is a factory water neck, upper and lower, actually cut them down some, ordered these bungs off Racetronics, I think it was. They're stainless, and had my good buddy Michael Cordova TIG weld these things on. Look at those TIG welds, man, those are perfect. Let me get you on there. But yeah, then we just bought these Dash 20 AN fittings, and we're going to run some lines to that. And then this fitting actually is a 35 degree, so it's like perfect. I couldn't have done any perfect. It goes up and gets parallel with that bar, and then it stops about right here. And then we got a line running over into the radiator here, so that's going to be perfect. And then fans. I do not have a fan set up yet. I do have an aluminum radiator out there, and actually the original radiator was super thin. It was like a single core radiator. So what I did is I actually just bought a 4-core radiator, which is 3 times the size of the original one for Jeep Wrangler. I think it was actually, they sold it as a Hemi swap radiator because a lot of people do Hemi swaps in these things. So hopefully it works. Hopefully it's got plenty enough flow. You know, obviously I'm going to get some high CFM fans to put on there on the backside, because I do believe I have about 3.5 inches, which isn't much, but hopefully I can find some fans that are at least, you know, max 3.5 inches deep between the radiator and these pulleys up here. So yeah, it's just a quick and dirty overview of how I have diesel swapped this 2016 Jeep Wrangler 4-door. So yep, and then your brake lines, of course, and then I'm actually going with the factory Hydro Boost system that came off of that 99 truck. We're going to use the power steering for full hydraulic steering and Hydro Boost brakes. So I do have the lines for the double-ended ram to come up to this, what's it called? The proportioner valve, maybe? That's not right. You know what it is, though. This is the thing that does all the steering. But I do have to get a supply line from here, run down. Actually, it goes from the power steering pump to the brakes, from the brakes to here, from here, which is the return, back to the reservoir maybe, or the cooler. You got to add a cooler in somewhere, so we'll get to that though. But yeah, then our brakes, like I said, we've got stainless brakes, and this is sort of what we did here. We have 2-inch upper links from Wide Open Designs, and then we bought these super cool brackets, which these are loose because I've still got to run the power steering lines. But all these brackets I think is like from AJK Off-Road, and we got those front and back just to hold the stainless brake lines. And yeah, we're eventually, once I get it running, driving and everything, we're going to tear it completely back down. Believe it or not, about 8 days ago, this thing was a bare frame sitting over there, and I had to finish weld everything out. I mean, everything. And then start putting it together, which honestly, I really only spent maybe 5 to 6 hours putting everything back on it, in it, running brake lines and everything. And a lot of that time was actually bending these brake lines and stuff, because before I did not have brake lines. But yeah, so it wasn't the end of the world. So we're going to tear it completely back down, sandblast the frame, sandblast everything metal, and then I've actually got to make this engine skid plate. Got to weld a skid plate to the bottom of that, cut one out, weld it to it. And then I've got some pieces to make this removable. So I've got to cut this somewhere or another and add some of these. I think it's a 4-bolt flange right over here. I ordered some of these off of Barnes 4-wheel drive. I ordered a ton of stuff from Barnes, so we're going to get these. They didn't come with the bolts and washers and stuff. I actually just went to the parts store and bought all that. I'm going to tell you, too, if you do something like this, you'll have a small fortune in bolts. I mean, that's definitely a line item on this thing. Hardware, bolts, nuts, washers. So don't let that fool you. But yeah, there's just a quick overview of the Jeep build. All right, so I might have got off track on that tangent there. I'm pretty bad about that. But to conclude that long message, Cummins swapping something, or engine swapping, LS swapping it. I had the chance to LS swap this thing. I just didn't want it. You know, I really like the Cummins platform. I like the diesel platform in general. A ton of power, you know, blows coal, all that good stuff. Not really a proponent of blowing coal. Don't get me wrong. I like the sound of it, of them. I used to really like the sound of them. Now, straight pipe, this is probably going to get on my nerves. Probably going to want to obviously try to run exhaust. I just didn't want to run exhaust down under the Jeep and then it really drone off the ground, and then that gets really loud. But I may actually do that and figure out how to put a muffler on it somehow to quieten it down. But so I like the Cummins. I've always wanted a diesel Jeep. I didn't really want a 4BT swap this thing, but going back to the 6BT Cummins, you know, anybody can swap anything, really. I mean, as long as you sort of do a little bit of research on the engine itself, figure out everything, mainly what it needs to run electronics wise. A lot of like LS's, you know, Holley makes, I'm pretty sure, a full standalone harness. There is people that make, so I actually got that 24 valve running on its own with just 12 volt power. So you do have to cut in the harness. There's forums out there you can find that you do got to do some research, but you can get those run on standalone. Same thing with the common rails. I think you need the ECM, but there is companies that make standalone harnesses. So all you need is power, fuel, and air. That's it. I mean, it is pretty difficult to get all these stuff. So like if I kept everything in the Jeep factory-wise, like radios, AC heater and all that, it'd been a little difficult, but I'm not worried about all that mess. So we took it all out. We're going to put aftermarket radios and stuff in it. But yeah, back to the swap. I mean, it's pretty simple. I don't want to say it's simple. It's not simple at all. It's not easy. You got to have some dedication. You got to have some willpower, but you can do it. Anybody can do it. I mean, I'm not the smartest man. With the help of some Harbor Freight tools and just some willpower, I got it this far. It's really like time frame, maybe 10 more hours worth of labor to get it driving, and that's just a bunch of little things. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, it's at least driving. It may still be sitting on the bump stops because I don't know when that fella can get to actually scaling it and getting the springs on it, but it'll at least start and be able to put in gear. So yeah, just start. Just get, and if you can't get a donor vehicle, so like get a truck that has the motor in it, or car, whatever motor you want, just get a vehicle that's got the motor. That way you've got everything that it needs to run. If you need the harness, you've got a harness from the vehicle. If you need ECMs, it comes with it. If you need throttle pedals, etc., it's there. And then get you the vehicle that you're going to put it in. And then you just like marry the two together. You can do it. I'm fairly confident. You don't need fancy. I've got a garage here. I've used this space over here, which is barely, I'm gonna say maybe 32 foot. I think it is 30 foot, 32 foot by like 12 foot wide. You've got an apron outside. I've got an engine hoist. I do have a tractor. You know, I farm, so I've got a big tractor with a front end loader. So that's how I get my tub on and off. I do have a 2-post lift, a brand new one sitting out there on a trailer, but your boy ain't got no shop to put it in. So the ceilings in here is like 11 foot ceilings. Why I didn't have them make it 12, I don't know. I could have easily made it 12, but I wasn't thinking at the point. And really this thing's taking up all the fun, so we ain't built a shop yet, but that's besides the point. Just get two vehicles, marry them together, get going with it. Just get going. So yeah, if you like what you see here, just subscribe or follow, however you do it, and then hopefully I'll get to it, post some more videos on this in maybe a week or two with the tub on, and then possibly even running and driving. That'd be pretty sick. So yeah, just check it out. Follow me on Instagram at Sawyer_Garrett_92. There's a lot of underscores there, but Sawyer_Garrett_92. And I post reels on this thing religiously. I try to, at least not every day, every other day. I work on this thing constantly, but I really only work on it in spurts, like 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there, an hour here, an hour there. So the past 2 hours that I've been working on, I've been making this video, it seems like, and hopefully it'll be condensed down to 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So yeah, just get started with it. We'll catch you guys on the next one.